But gold is much more stable than Bitcoin, and it's actually a store of value because gold actually has value to store. Bitcoin has no value, it only has a price, and price is very volatile, and price can collapse.
In my opinion, it's the best money in human history. Bitcoin has an average annual return of around 60%. Gold has an inflation-adjusted return of annually around 2% over that same duration. So I think Bitcoin is better money. I think monies compete over monetary policy, and I expect Bitcoin to continue to do what it's already done.
What if I told you that the future of money might not be what you think? In a gripping debate, Jack Mallers, CEO of Strike, goes head-to-head with Peter Schiff, the chief market strategist of Euro-Pacific Asset Management. They dive deep into a fundamental question: what is the best form of money? As inflation rises and economic uncertainty looms, both Bitcoin and gold take center stage, each vying for the title of the ultimate asset. Are we witnessing the dawn of a new monetary era, or is gold still the king? Buckle up, because this conversation is about to get heated.
I think the inflation problem is going to grow larger over time. And that's because all of the factors that are driving inflation are going to get worse. We're going to have much larger deficit spending over the next 4 years than we've had over the prior 4 years. I mean, that's just a trend. We have an explosion in entitlements, which no candidate wants to touch. In fact, Donald Trump wants to increase Social Security because he wants to stop taxing it. That's the same thing as an increase in benefits. But nobody is going to do anything about interest on the national debt, which is spiraling out of control. Now it's over $1 trillion a year. It's the third biggest line item. The pressure on the Fed to return to quantitative easing in an even bigger way than it's done in the past is going to be extreme. And so I think the inflation, which is basically quantitative easing, it's printing money to monetize government deficit spending. We're going to have bigger deficits under either Trump or Harris. And the Fed is going to create even more inflation to finance them. And the dollar is going to go lower.
The government can't afford its debt. And we know that the United States defaulting as the world reserve currency is not an option. And so they have to debase the currency. It's their only way out is through. They have to print. And the financial markets are saying as much, in my opinion. Interest rates have gone up, gold is up, Bitcoin's up, stock market's up. When interest rates were zero and we were living through COVID inflationary times, Bitcoin up, stock market up, gold up.
Historically, at least going back to the formation of the gold ETFs, the price of gold and the assets under management of the gold ETFs have gone in a positive correlation with one another. As the price of gold goes up, more people want to buy. And so there's more money that's coming into these ETFs. And the converse, when gold starts to pull back, people get nervous and they sell. And so as the price of gold goes down, there's net liquidations out of the gold ETFs. Well, that all broke down, starting kind of in 2022, but really kicked into gear in late 2023, where we saw an almost parabolic, rise in gold. Gold went up 25% in a short period of time. But during the same period of time, we saw record outflows from the gold ETFs. And I think not a coincidence, they really started to pick up in January of this year when all the Bitcoin ETFs launched. And I thought that maybe there were a lot of people, ETF investors, who were making the switch. They were selling gold ETFs and buying the Bitcoin ETFs. But I thought that was a great contrarian indicator because when retail is selling, it's generally a bullish indicator. But the question is, if you had all these retail investors selling their gold, why'd the price go up so much? Somebody was buying, and it was the institutions, mainly foreign central banks, that were buying the gold that retail investors were selling. And interestingly enough, I tweeted out today, since those ETFs came public about the second week of January, since the opening trade, they're up about 16.5%, but gold's up 24% during the same time period. And if you actually look, even though Bitcoin made a new nominal record high this year in dollars, it never made a new high. So I think the tide has already turned where Bitcoin is going to continuously lose value measured in the price of gold. And especially when you look at the market cap, because gold has added a tremendous amount of market cap this year, given how much larger the market cap already was. So it's going to be very elusive. I hear a lot of people, Bitcoin thinks that, Bitcoiners think that it's going to overtake a gold market cap when it's actually been falling further and further behind in market cap related to gold over these past 3 years. Despite all the hype, all the ETFs, MicroStrategy, strategy with Michael Saylor, El Salvador, ETFs, all this stuff, Super Bowl ads, massive conferences, they still can't get Bitcoin to make a new high.
In my opinion, it's the best money in human history. It's for very fundamental purposes of the properties that we want in a money. For one, it's the scarcest money in human history. It's the only monetary asset of all time that has a fixed supply. It's the most portable asset of all time. It's the only monetary asset that you can teleport over a communications channel like the internet. The most divisible asset of all time. It can measure an asset that's the size of a grain of sand. It can also measure assets the size of sports franchises. It is infinitely divisible because it is bytes of data. It's durable, it's portable, it's actually censorship resistant to governments and central parties, which gold unfortunately is not. And so to me, Bitcoin has been the most performant asset since it's been invented in human history. If you don't want to take the early number bias, over the last decade, Bitcoin has an average annual return of around 60%. Gold has an inflation adjusted return of annually around 2% over that same duration. So I think Bitcoin is better money. I think monies compete over monetary policy, and I expect Bitcoin to continue to do what it's already done.
Well, Bitcoin doesn't really have a long term. It's only been around, 12, 13 years. So you're talking about 25% of the history of Bitcoin when you're talking about 3 years. But also, you can't ignore all of the hype that's occurred in the past 3 years that should have driven Bitcoin much higher. In fact, if you go and look at what all the Bitcoin bulls were saying a year ago, 6 months ago, 2 years ago about where Bitcoin would be, nobody thought it would be this low. I mean, everybody was talking about crazy numbers. And so it's been very disappointing from that respect. Now, getting back to your idea that Bitcoin is the greatest money that's ever been invented, I don't think it qualifies as money at all because money has to be the most marketable commodity, and the commodity has to have value unto itself, and Bitcoin has none. Bitcoin is used to exchange, and you could speculate on it, you can buy it, and maybe somebody else will pay a higher price. But apart from that, it's not used for anything the way money is supposed to be.
So far, we've explored the shifting dynamics between Bitcoin and gold, where gold is emerging as the more resilient asset despite all the hype surrounding Bitcoin. We've seen how gold has added substantial market cap this year while Bitcoin struggles to reach its previous highs, especially when measured against gold. From Super Bowl ads to massive conferences and even nation-states adopting Bitcoin, the narrative has been strong, but the numbers show gold pulling ahead. If you think that's all, stay tuned. We're diving deeper into the implications of this trend and what it means for the future of both assets. The real insight is coming up, and you won't want to miss it.
As much better money than it ever has in the past. And it did a pretty good job for hundreds or thousands of years, because you could take gold, you could tokenize it, and now I could divide it infinitely into tiny little specks. I can send it across the world as quickly. In fact, I can send it faster than I can send Bitcoin. I can send it for less money than I can send Bitcoin. So we could use gold as the basis of a digital monetary system that is much better than when gold was the basis of a paper monetary system. So, but gold is much more stable than Bitcoin, and it's actually a store of value because gold actually has value to store. Bitcoin has no value, it only has a price, and price is very volatile, and price can collapse. Now, of course, there are some stocks that have gone bankrupt.
It hasn't outperformed anything. It hasn't outperformed commodities at large. And since Bitcoin's existed, Bitcoin's outperformed everything. Gold hasn't.
Yes, so I agree. I grant you that. Nothing that Bitcoin hasn't outperformed. And that will be true. By the way, if next year Bitcoin is down at 10,000, that will still be true. Bitcoin would have still outperformed everything, but most people who own it will have lost almost all their money.
David, the real problem with gold is that unfortunately it has to centralize. The problem is that gold can't achieve transaction finality without the help of a government or a central party, meaning that when gold was operating in a local economy and you can exchange the physical coins with your direct counterpart or your butcher, your local tailor, your grocer, whoever you were exchanging with, gold was great. When the world needed to scale an economy and the velocity of money larger than your local economy, gold failed us. Gold failed us because gold is just a bare physical metal. It does not carry a monetary network. What's the gold network? The gold network are human beings. And when you're trying to transact in an economy of billions of people globally, you are reliant on central parties, banks, governments. And it was for that reason that gold failed. And it failed in a way that you can't operate a truly free market when the concentrated supply is with those that you have to trust. And so that's fundamentally what Bitcoin solved, is that you are able to create a scarce bearer instrument and a network that can achieve finality in transactional settlement without the reliance on any government or central party. So that, I think, is that's really the core issue of why gold's gold's been demonetized since. Bitcoin is supposed to be money and the best money of all time. And according to those properties and characteristics, I don't think anything competes with it. I've never seen an argument where in which some other asset fulfills the properties of money better than Bitcoin. All of his claims against Bitcoin are the same with gold. Again, like, what's the confidence that someone will value Bitcoin tomorrow? What's the confidence someone will value gold tomorrow, which is the real judge of what the good money is? Bitcoin's been crowned every single year. Money is valuable as a money if it can be scarce, if it can be durable, portable, resistant to censorship, saleable, liquid. These are the properties. If a money can achieve that. So when Peter says it has a limit of 21 million, who cares? The market cares because it is an asset that despite more and more demand, nobody can find more supply. That is insanely valuable. So valuable that it's been the most performant asset in the history of humanity.
The debate between gold and Bitcoin continues to shape the future of finance. With Bitcoin's unique properties and limited supply, it's clear why many see it as the leading contender for the next generation of money. While gold has a rich history, Bitcoin's ability to operate independently from central authorities makes it a revolutionary force in our financial landscape. If you found this discussion insightful, hit that like button, subscribe for more in-depth analyses, and stay tuned as we continue to explore the evolving world of finance. The future is bright, and it's just getting started.